This is a Vigier GV Wood. For those of you who don't know, Vigier is a French boutique guitar company, and all of their instruments are built with tuning stability, durability, consistency, and reliability as key design features. And in terms of Les Paul style guitars, this is certainly on the super modern side. However, we still have a 24.8-inch scale length, 22 frets, single cutaway dual humbucker pickups, and a maple top. Gibson specs, plus durability, reliability, consistency, and tuning stability. So it's like getting a Les Paul without any of the Les Paul flaws. The only issue is, Vigier is no longer making guitars. Sometimes you don't know how great something is until you no longer have it. I had this model in the past and sold it, and I've had this guitar for a year, and I was planning on selling it right after this video. But then I recorded the following clip, and I realized something. Now, I don't know if you like the Vigier more or the Gibson tone more. Maybe you can't tell the difference. Let's argue about it in the comments. Either way, today's episode of the Les Paul Experiment is about the Vigier GV Wood, and I also have a new tone hypothesis. But first, let's talk about this amazing guitar. By the way, this video is sponsored by me, and the Lifelong Guitarist program is the only program in existence designed for busy adults. You get a plan designed for you, one-on-one attention, unlimited feedback, and you can make great progress with just 15 minutes of practice a day. And there's even a 100% money-back guarantee. There's a bunch of guys in the program already, and they all love it, so check it out, link below if you're interested. The Vigier headstock is a sight to behold. The color matches the body, and there's even a nice flame that matches the body. We have Spurzo locking tuners, and the logos are actually pieces of metal that adhere to the headstock. It's a very unique industrial aesthetic. As we move from the headstock to the neck, you'll notice more boutique designs. First is the string dampener, which is a removable piece of felt-like material that reduces noise behind the nut. I do think it looks better than our standard tools for the job, and I don't think anyone else has built it into a guitar yet, so that's a really cool touch. Then we move to the combination of a Teflon nut and segmented stainless steel 0 frets. Teflon is a nonstick material commonly used on nonstick kitchen pans and other places a low friction surface is desirable. When you combine the Teflon nut with straight string pull from the nut to the tuners, you solve the Les Paul poor tuning stability after bends issue. But what's the point of adding a segmented 0 fret to the nut? Well, the nut on a standard guitar without a 0 fret has two functions. The first is to keep the string properly spaced. The second is to set the action or string height at the first fret. The second function, setting the string height, requires the nut to be cut precisely. Too low and the string will buzz. Too high and you'll never achieve low action. Now, the combination of a 0 fret and a nut separates these two functions. The string passes through the nut, which establishes the string spacing, and then it sits on top of the 0 fret, setting the proper height. Although a 0 fret certainly isn't required to achieve low action, it does make the process easier and likely more consistent from a manufacturing standpoint. You know for a fact that the action can't be any more perfect since the string can't possibly be any lower than sitting on the fret itself. Now, one thing to consider is that when you have a 0 fret, it tends to wear out pretty quickly since the string is always resting on top of it. But the BJ guitar, of course, has stainless steel frets, and the stainless steel 0 fret is segmented. So if just one string string wears part of the fret down, you can remove and replace that one segment rather than replacing the entire 0 fret. I have a little baggie of these segmented frets. They don't cost much, and you gotta imagine that a bag is going to last at least 2 or 3 lifetimes. And a final detail that makes this different from a Gibson, the headstock doesn't come as forward back, and it also has a volute. So you don't have to worry about this headstock breaking off like you do on a traditional Gibson. As we move to the rest of the neck, we have more unique VGA features. First, all VGA guitars feature the 1090 system. The necks are constructed with a ratio of 90% maple wood, which has been dried for at least 3 years, and 10% carbon fiber. The carbon fiber reinforcement significantly reduces the neck's susceptibility to changes in temperature and humidity, which helps to prevent warping and twisting. Today, there are a lot of guitars on the market that have 1 or even 2 carbon fibrous reinforcement rods, but in my experience, none of them, and I mean none of them, are as stable as a VGA neck. There's something to this 1090 system. In fact, due to the exceptional stability provided by the 1090 system, VGA necks don't even have a truss rod. This simplifies the maintenance and contributes to a greater consistency. However, all VGA guitars have bolt-on necks. So the bolt-on plus the maple and carbon fiber instead of mahogany, these are spec differences when compared to a Les Paul. The neck shape is also what I would describe as a thin D. It is definitely much thinner than a 50s Les Paul, but at the same time, there are a lot of Gibsons with thinner necks. We also have stainless steel frets and a fennel wood fretboard. Fennel wood is a combination of laminate wood and resin, and this is my favorite fretboard of all time. So much so that I've been spending years trying to find someone who can replicate this fennel wood fretboard so I can put it on my own custom guitar someday. The feel is incredibly smooth and hard and slick, without feeling sticky like gloss. It reminds me of the composite fretboards you find on Parker guitars, except this one is even better. This fretboard shouldn't be mistaken for Richlite, which I also like, but it doesn't have that same glass-like smoothness. When you combine the stainless steel frets, the perfect string action, and the fennel wood fretboard, especially the fennel wood fretboard, it feels like that scene from that movie, or like dancing on oiled marble. Actually, it feels better than that. It feels like you have silk socks and you're dancing on an oiled marble floor. Now that I think about it, I'm not sure everyone would even like that, but I love the way it feels. It's by far my favorite fretboard ever, and if you know how to make one, please comment below, send me an email, something. And here are some more unique specs. The body is made from a thin piece of alder, so no mahogany, alder, and we have a flame maple top. I also find the body much more comfortable than a traditional Les Paul because we have a belly cut, it's thinner, and we also have much better high fret access. The entire guitar is finished in gloss, and I don't feel that the neck gets sticky, but I do notice the forearm getting sticky if I'm not wearing a long sleeve shirt when I'm playing. We have the fancy Nutrix locking jack, so you have to actually press and pull the cable out in order to get it out, and when you put it back in, it locks in place. I actually don't love this because it makes me kind of nervous when I put the guitar down. Like, if you trip and fall, you might break your cable, which is not great, but it is unique at least. The bridge and tailpiece is also made by Vigier, and it's pretty slick and pretty, and the electronics are also different. We have custom wound amber pickups, master volume, master tone, and a 5-way switch. So in addition to our humbucker tones, we also get a lot of split coil sounds. Now when it comes to the tones, I actually really love the neck pickup tone on this guitar. Sometimes on Gibsons, the neck pickup can be too bassy and almost muddy, but something about this guitar's more bright characteristic really works for the neck pickup. Now, the split coil sound to me is pretty much useless. It has a lot of hum because it's a split coil, of course, but it actually doesn't give me much of that single coil characteristic I would want from a neck position. It's my least favorite tone on this guitar. Both pickups combined sounds like pretty much every other dual humbucker with both pickups combined. Again, not my go-to tone, but you can get a little bit of quack and funkiness if you need that tone. Now, the bridge pickup split on this guitar I actually really like. For some reason, it's not as noisy as the neck pickup split, and you do get almost like a fat telly sound out of it, so I really love that. And like the neck pickup, the bridge pickup is fantastic. It has a lot of snarl, it has a lot of attitude, and a lot of sustain. It's just a beautiful sounding pickup overall. So now let's talk about tone and my new hypothesis, but first a quick backstory. 4 years ago, 2021, before I had a YouTube channel, my primary guitars were Parkers and a dual humbucker Super Strat Vigier. Back then, my only concern was tuning stability and reliability, so I naturally gravitated to Parkers and Vigier. But even back then, I eventually started craving the Les Paul tone, so I bought a beautiful purple GV wood. I loved the way it looked, the way it felt, and I loved the way it sounded, but the tone was very similar to my Vigier Super Strat. Vigier Indus, Vigier GV wood. Different scale lengths, different pickups, but still a very similar tone in my experience. Back then, I also thought that tone was scale length and pickups, so I changed the pickups to Gibsons, and they sounded a little more like a Les Paul, but still mostly like a Vigier. And at the time, I didn't give it much thought. I thought to myself, well, this is a semi-successful experiment. I've actually sold the guitar and moved on. 3 years passed by, and now it's 2024. I start craving the Les Paul sound again. So I look around for non-Gibson options, and I remember the Fender wood fretboard, which I was missing a lot at that time, so I bought this GV wood. And in the year owning this guitar, I had the same exact experience. I love the guitar, I love the feel of the Fender board, I even love the tone, but it isn't the tone of a Gibson Les Paul, which is what I was trying to achieve. So last month, I started this experiment. I get a Gibson Les Paul, I get a Heritage guitar, and they just confirm my initial observations. Those guitars have totally different pickups, but they sound and feel almost identical. The Vigier doesn't sound like either of them. Well, that's what I thought. But then I played the Gibson and the very similar Heritage guitar almost exclusively for a couple of weeks. Afterward, I picked up my Vigier for the first time in a long time to prepare for this video, and it hit me. The reason the Vigier didn't sound like a Gibson was because I was approaching it like I approach all of my other modern, ergonomic, perfect action, big fret guitars. The Gibson forced me to play guitar differently, an aggression I haven't really committed to in my adult years. So when I went back to play the Vigier, yeah, it started to sound a lot more like the Les Paul tone I hear in my head. I'll get to my hypothesis in a second, but let me first say this. People online swear that stainless steel frets and nickel frets sound almost the same, and with an EQ change, you can correct any differences. Here's my experience. You can correct the difference in a recorded sound if you even notice it. You probably won't. But to a guitarist playing that instrument, they will always sound different. Not better, not worse, but definitely different. My hypothesis isn't going to sound very scientific, but music is only part science. The other part is pixie dust and prayers. I think guitars are a lot like humans and pickups are like clothing. A beautiful woman is going to look beautiful in sweatpants and a baseball cap, but an attractive outfit can enhance the beauty. For my 2 female viewers, you can take a random blonde guy off the street, give him a nice haircut, put him in a great suit, and he will look more handsome than if he were a hobo, but he won't ever look like Brad Pitt. And Brad Pitt can try to change his hair for a role, but he won't ever look like Leonardo DiCaprio. Here's the part that no one talks about. When you're using medium output pickups through a cleanish amp, no crazy gain, no long list of effects, no recording gear and mixing, no YouTube video compression, in that setting, you will absolutely hear every single difference of a guitar. The frets, the wood, the pickups, the speakers, or speaker simulations. You will hear it all. And here's the other thing that no one mentions. You need to have an ear for that gear in order to tell the difference. Whenever Mystery Girl hears me playing instrumental jazz, it doesn't matter if it's Dizzy Gillespie or John Coltrane, she says, "Oh, you're playing Hey Arnold music." And whenever she hears a crooner singing, she says, "Oh, it's Dino Spumoni.
You better not touch my gal."
She's not a musician or a fan of jazz. She doesn't hear any of those fine details unless I sit there and point them out, and then she still barely notices. Here's an even better example. I don't play a lot of high-gain music, so I can't tell you the fine differences between a PV5150 and a diesel amp. But some of you watching this video would be able to instantly tell the second your pick hits the string. So, the VGA made out of alder and maple with fennel wood fretboard and stainless steel frets, bolt-on neck? Yeah, if you play it with gain and aggression, it still sounds a lot like a Les Paul. Maybe someone has a secret tonewood cipher where fennel wood plus maple plus alder actually equals mahogany. I don't really know. Either way, it's a shame that these guitars are no longer being made, but I'm happy I got one, and it's no longer for sale. By the way, if you like these kind of relaxed, somewhat musical, somewhat philosophical, partly silly talks, check out the free Lifelong Guitarist Newsletter link below. It's an exclusive podcast and written article, and it comes out every single Saturday morning.